Hello and welcome to this, our second video in our series covering the new European regulations. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the open category, having a look specifically at all the subcategories within there. I'm Ben, your host, head of training here at heliguy, so without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Now, before we jump into the open category, I just want to backtrack back to the previous video, video number 1, which covers the EU regulations, where I say want to fly your drone in a recreational capacity. Now, this was something of a Freudian slip by myself, being so used to talking about recreational and commercial. It's still taken me a little bit of time to come around to this new concept that there is no differentiation between what is a commercial and a non-commercial drone flight. So let's kick off talking about the first category, the A1 subcategory of the open category, which is flights over people. So the A1 subcategory of the open category introduces an entirely new concept, and that is flights in very close proximity or directly above uninvolved persons. This is something we've never had the opportunity to do as drone operators, either in a recreational capacity or even those with the most complex OSCs, operating safety cases. This is now achievable with very, very small aircraft. In fact, on the screen now you should have the table which shows the type of aircraft which can be used in the A1 subcategory. Now, as you see, it entirely depends on the type of aircraft you're using, be that a C0, a C1, or your aircraft might fall into the A1 transitional category. Now, I'm going to caveat the A1 transitional category in that in order to operate in the A1, you actually need the A2 qualification, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the video. So depending on the type of aircraft you have, whether it's a C0, you may be able to operate literally directly above uninvolved persons. Other aircraft, there is a separation distance. You will not be able to operate directly above the uninvolved persons, and so you have to retract your aircraft away. Now, the requirement to operate in the A1 subcategory is the completion of the CEA's DMARES, the Drone and Model Aircraft Registration and Education Service, but caveated that if you want to use an A1 transitional aircraft in this category, you would need to complete the A2 CofC, Certificate of Competency. So the next subcategory of the open category is the A2 flights close to people. Again, there are different requirements based on the type of aircraft which you're going to be using in this subcategory, in that you will be able to operate a C2 aircraft with the separation distance of 5 meters from uninvolved persons in a low speed mode and 30 meters in normal mode. Now, those separation distances aren't quite as black and white as they first might appear, because there's something coming in called the 1-to-1 rule, which means that the horizontal distance of the small unmanned aircraft must be equal to or greater than the height by which it's operating. So that means you can achieve the 5-meter separation rule from uninvolved persons in a low speed mode, and your aircraft must be no higher than 5 meters. Likewise, if you want to ascend your aircraft to a height of 10 meters, you would have to withdraw away a minimum of 10 meters from any uninvolved person. So whilst this does, of course, open up many opportunities to operate in the A2 subcategory, there is a small caveat on those separation distances. Another benefit to operating in the A2 subcategory is the ability to exceed 400 feet when inspecting a structure which it itself exceeds 400 feet in height. Now, the separation distances for operating whilst inspecting these structures is horizontally 50 meters and above the structure no higher than 15 meters. This is something we've never seen before, yet you don't have to get permission from the CEA because that structure already represents a hazard to aviation. So the presence of a drone in close proximity to that structure doesn't increase that risk. Now, this represents a huge benefit to those who are using drones in an inspection capacity, because previously they'd have to find other ways to facilitate the inspection of any area of the structure which exceeded 400 feet in height. So for all subcategories, the minimum training requirement starts at the completion of the CEA's DMARES. For the A2, however, you need to go one step beyond and attend the A2 CofC courses with a recognised assessment entity. So the A2 CofC course is a single-day event which will be offered by organisations called RAEs, Recognised Assessment Entities, such as heliguy, which we're going to be offering from June 2020 onwards. The The course culminates with a 30-question multiple-choice examination with a minimum pass mark of 75%. Now, the benefits to the A2 course, by comparison to the current PFCO or the GVC, is that you don't have to complete an operations manual, a practical flight assessment, or submit an application to the Civil Aviation Authority. This means you can be operational the very next day after completing the course. However, there is a practical element in that you can self-declare your own practical training. This must be conducted in the A3 subcategory, but replicating the provisions of the A2 subcategory. There's also the option to complete the practical flight training with a recognised assessment entity as well. Now, at the time of making this video, there is currently no minimum requirement. However, it is expected to be released around about May time. Unlike the current PFCO or the GVC going forward, there is no requirement to complete an operations manual or submit an application to the Civil Aviation Authority. This means that you'll be able to operate in the A2 subcategory immediately, providing that you do the course after the 1st of July 2020. If you do the course before then you will have to wait until that date first. Finally, we're talking about the A3 subcategory, which is flights far from people. This means that you have to maintain a clear separation between any uninvolved persons as a minimum of 150 meters and the same distance as well from any area which is substantially used for residential, commercial, industrial, or recreational purposes. In this category, you'll be able to operate an aircraft which doesn't exceed 25 kilograms. And of course, after the 2-year transitional point, any aircraft which is being used in the legacy categories for either the A1 or A2 subcategories will only be able to be used in the A3 category. So this restricts you to pretty much benign environments, but as mentioned in the previous video, if you do happen to capture an amazing piece of footage that you want to then make money from stock imagery, etc., then you can do so. So to summarise, in the open category we have those 3 subcategories: the A1 flights over people, A2 flights close to people, and A3 flights far from people. So if you've enjoyed this video, then don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, and also consider subscribing to the channel to see the rest of the series as we release it over the coming weeks. Also, if you have any questions, then by all means leave us a comment below and we'll get back to you, or you can contact us direct via the website heliguy.com. There's also a comprehensive overview of these regulations which is featured on the training section of the website. At the end of this series, myself and Tom are going to be hosting a sofa session where we can answer any questions that you have which aren't answered in this series. So if you have a question that you want to feature on that video, then send it in via the comments below and we'll make sure you're featured.